Hello and welcome to the TrainerWise Daily Show. On today's episode, we asked a question about often used training terminology and what it really means.
It just conjures up images of people instead of mail and hate mail. How can you make this thing that way? I tried to know what the myth of core is. Again, trying to get different approaches to
Hey, this is a call out to all strength coaches and trainers out there. If you would like to share your views on a given topic, just go to trainerwise.com. Fill out the contact form. Tell us the topic that's of interest to you, and we'll get you on as soon as possible. We're filling up shows at the moment, currently taking guest speakers. So please do take the time now to contact us there, and we'll get you on. Today's guest is our regular guest, Joe Stankowski. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Always glad to be here.
All right, cool, man. First question is, there are a ton of training terms out there, functional, core, toning, boot camp. Everybody talks about them. Everybody uses them in their literature and whatnot. What do these things actually mean? Let's talk about the notion of functional. When people use it, what are they trying to say with that word?
I think the question really should be even too, like, what do trainers mean by it and what does the public mean by it?
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
And this is kind of the thing, is that as trainers, as people who are trying to market fitness to the public, we need to understand what their understanding of functional fitness means, what core means. So, we're not necessarily going to be able to change everything. We can't reinvent wheels, but we could work with the wheels that are already there.
Yeah.
So I think, for the last 10, 15 years, so functional fitness meant you kind of balance on top of a stability ball, lighting yourself on fire, doing like a backflip.
That's right.
And it's basically a circus trick, which is functional if you are like a circus monkey. But for general people, the way I would define functional, and this really goes back to 9/11, because I remember hearing about in New York City after the planes hit and towers went down, gym memberships went up and people were hitting the stair climbers like big time. Not because they wanted to be in shape to do stairs necessarily to burn body fat, but because they thought if they were in a building that got attacked, they needed the functional ability to get out of their building as quickly as possible. And so function really comes down to specificity. It's the perceived specificity or the actual measurable specificity of whatever activities you might do. So if you live in a 110-story building in downtown Manhattan, you might want to be able to do at least 110 stories worth of stair climbing. To use kind of a negative example here, but that's what function really is what is the worst case scenario, and how can I have some reserve in the tank? But I think just being out of balance, out of control, and having no clue what you're doing under the guise of functional, I think that's really pushing the idea of what functional really should be.
So do you think that people intertwine that with fun? It's gonna be a functional workout. Do you think the public's perception is still that old idea, or do they get the idea of actually using your body?
I think that because there's trainers that out here that are trying to promote the idea of what functional really means. There's been enough articles, there's been enough publicity about what true functionality is, as far as having reserve in the tank to do your basic activities of daily living or your sport or whatever, and have some extra in the tank. I think the perception's finally changing. I hope it is.
Yeah.
I'd like to think within our industry that it's changed enough that way we're not talking about, hey, functional means us, do that backflip monkey crunch thing,
Yeah.
with our hair on fire. But I still think we're still struggling to get that point across. But people need to understand what functional means, and it's really specific to the individual.
Yeah.
What's functional to my grandmother is going to be different than what's functional to me.
That's right.
It's like, what's the biggest challenge I might have in my day, and what might an 88-year-old farmer have in middle Wisconsin, right?
Yeah, that's definitely true, and I hope that the farmer in Wisconsin gets that. In brief, at least to them, if there's a very simple term, it means off the machines. It's like, okay, I'm not doing a bodybuilder workout.
Unless your life is spent on machines. If you're Darth Vader, if you're Darth Vader and you live in like this big air-conditioned suit, and you have that suit to support you and stabilize you and help you move, then sure. And if it helps you breathe, sure. But most of us aren't the boy in the plastic bubble or Darth Vader, so we don't have I don't want to call it a luxury, but we don't have those props to help us get through with life. So we need the ability to move in 3 dimensions against gravity, producing, reducing, stabilizing force. That's what functional fitness is.
Yeah.
Then really, how far do you take it? That bodybuilding, is that functional? Well, for a bodybuilder, I guess it would be.
Yeah.
But for John Q. Public, it means you need to be able to overcome forces in daily life, however that might be for you.
Yeah. So toning is another one that people have used historically. When I refer to tone, you talk about the body's current to the muscles, your efferent and afferent nerve fibers and how you communicate there. But we're not talking about that kind of tone when people are talking about I want to be toned. What they're really saying is be leaner, right?
They want to have better definition is the shape. That's what I've finally come around to accepting. That's what people mean. Is that I hate it. I resist it.
Yeah.
I don't like people. Oh, I want to be toned. I say, well, let me see it bend your arm. Does it bend? Does it straighten? Apparently have tone because your arm has, again, to use the F word, function. It has that.
Yeah.
So apparently have the right length tension relationships set. So you have tone. I mean, everything there seems to be functioning okay. So for a very simple definition, sure, we've got tone. But what the people mean, the public means when they're shopping around and they make the phone calls and say, well, what does training cost? And I say, well, what do you want to do? Or, how fat are you? Which they don't like that answer because I don't have an answer till I know that. But they generally mean they want to lose some body fat, but that's their way of articulating it. It's like I think the public wants to sound educated. When, I mean, hell, if I go car shopping, I'm no mechanic, but I'm gonna kick the tires and ask where the flux capacitor is, because I don't know what else to ask. Is this one running 1.20 gigawatts or not? And I don't know what else to ask as a car shopper necessarily. And
so I think that I've come around to using it as well. I'm like, they say toned, and I don't have to like, bam, shoot them down. I'm like, actually, what you mean is, so I'm cool with knowing what they mean because everybody does know what they mean. And core, I guess core is one of the things I want to talk about. The notion of core. Everybody says core, and core is a lot. People say your lats are core, and they start down at your your sacrum and whatnot, and go all the way up to the shoulder. So to me, I think people think core as six pack. But
I'd say the public thinks that. They think core means do sit ups and crunches and hanging leg raises and those abdominal, the pretty muscles, the ones you see when you have the shirt off and you're lean enough. I wrote an article for a fitness magazine years back geared towards men, and that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say the name of the magazine, but you could maybe patch that one together. And the lead-in I want for the article is there's a 4-letter C word I hate to hear thrown around the gym. And of course, that 4-letter C word is core. But it's trying to get the mind spinning here and go with that one where you will. And my editor liked it, but the editor-in-chief is like, no, can't have that one, because it just conjures up images of people sending in their email and their hate mail, and how can you make us think that way? But I tried to dispel what the myth of core is, and again, the idea of crunches, sit-ups, things like that being the only thing that core is, and yes, those might be some core muscles that are involved in that. But my argument is that every joint has a core. Your shoulder has a core. It's the rotator cuff. There's 4 muscles that kind of give stability to that joint. Every joint has some sort of a core. The commoners, the peasants, as I like to call them, just the regular people with think about core. If you cut off your arms, your legs, and your head, everything that's left, there's your core. That's pretty much it. Take all those muscles that are left, that's it. I mean, that's kind of what I guess that the general idea of core should be. But you can be as specific or as, I guess, a pain in the butt as I can be as you want. But yeah, no, it's I suppose core is what a person makes it.
Yeah, it's what everybody wants to do, it seems, these days. It seems they make sure, they check that box. We're going to do core training because my friend Belinda, she does core training with her trainer.
Right.
And so we're doing like a lunge press, let's say. I'm just saying, well, this is core. It's the dynamic stabilizer in the movement. So like, to me, it's like kind of re-educating the people that I work with to kind of like peel back that notion of like, isolating, if you will, just these muscles, but integrating them into the workout. I'm like, well, everything you do involves, your core function. If I put a load in your hand and you're actually using your legs to transport yourself, a body transport exercise with a load in your arms, you're going to need, integrity through your whole kinetic chain, So I kind of give them that little breakdown, but, people want to do what their friends are doing. And if their friends are doing some TRX with their hands on the ground, they're pulling their knees to their chest and they're like, oh yeah, I'm working my core. You kind of have to, I don't know, give them a little bit. Yeah, we'll do some of that, when we get to this stage and we're trying to, elicit this response. But in the interim, what we're doing right now is actually involving the use of your core and trying to, re-educate them so they don't feel like that they're getting the short end of the stick type thing.
We really need to sell them what they want, but also give them what they need at the same time. And what they need is also better understanding. But we can't just tell them, hey, you're an idiot and you don't understand what core means. Well, I understand what core means. And, hell, every year my understanding of core changes a little bit.
Right.
I'm evolving. I mean, as a trainer, I'm evolving. The public is evolving. Just the way people learn is evolving. We've got cool technology, like TrainerWise are here to help people learn. I mean, there's a lot of ways to learn, and it's not like you have to sit and read like a magazine and wait, 3 months after the article was actually written to be published, because then it's old news or journals, or how many months or years before something gets published. With the internet, we could learn stuff very quickly, and I think that's really speeding up the process of the public getting over these old school terms.
Exactly.
but there's still confusion because not everybody's up to the same speed.
Okay, so let me throw this at you. I think we nailed that down. So kind of the last question is, do you think that the general public it's good to expose them to the specificity? So if somebody breaks down, the specific muscles and say, okay, well, this muscle's origin here is here and its attachment is here. So therefore, if it crosses these joints, it can be qualified as, a body, a function at this joint and this joint. So we can define it as core if we want here, or, a shoulder core muscle if you want in this joint. And that specific detail, do you think it's good for the public to be exposed to that, or do you think that they may take something with it and misuse it or something like this?
I don't know if it's good for trainers to be exposed to that anymore either. I mean, it's just because we're not doctors, we're not physical therapists, we're not diagnosing, treating, prescribing. We deal with movement. And the way I simplify stuff is we have 5 basic movement patterns. We push, we pull, we twist, we bend, and we do level changes. And level changes is basically a bending pattern. We have, the hip, the knee, and the ankle all working together. So we have 3 bends happening instead of 1. And we have anti-bend as kind of a subcategory, and anti-rotate as a subcategory. But I try to take people down to the simplest level that I can explain it, that they can understand it. If somebody wants to understand every little piece of a muscle and where it's attached and why it's attached, I mean, it's like, I really don't care, because it doesn't matter. Again, to come back to functional, that buzzword again, it's like, who really cares if we're isolating one little piece of a muscle fiber if we're not going to use that as soon as we put the weight down or put the machine down or step out of the gym. Right. I think that's more the realm of physical therapists. So I almost think that people could become overeducated and think they know too much. Trainers and the public alike, by trying to spout out the big fancy words that they know, or keep it simple, keep it fun, make it effective. And for the people who need to know that, you might want to give them homework and let them come back and tell you. Say, hey, what's the origin and insertion of this muscle or that muscle, or what crosses, how many muscles cross this joint. If they want to learn that, help them learn it, but you don't necessarily have to talk in those terms, I don't think.
I would definitely agree with that. My contention was that I thought that, people having access to that was actually an okay thing. But as far as teaching in that way, oh, man, I got to say, no names again. Jim, I worked at, there were some people who, and I gotta be very honest. When I first heard of thoracolumbar fascia, I just probably couldn't shut up about it.
It's the coolest thing, isn't it?
Years ago, I was like, "Yeah, that attaches your thoracolumbar fascia, your transverse processing."
Yeah.
And I kind of learned after a while that when people would sit back, kind of fold their arms, and kind of have disinterest all over their face, that I should shut up and let them talk, ask them questions, engage with them. And so I would tell new trainers that who were at my gym, if I was involved in teaching the curriculum to them, I would just let them know, listen. It's easy to get in this habit of talking the way that we're talking here, because we think, oh, this is fun, and we're kind of dissecting the idea of the movement, what muscles are involved. Clients don't care about that, though.
I've had clients who are doctors and they don't even understand the language. I mean, because it's not something you use every day. It's not the way that we move every day. It's not the way the marketing is presented. So you need to speak in just common terms. Tone, core, functional.
So people who did that, they suffered, and I tried to tell them, like, come on, man, you can't talk that way. And some got that picture and kind of simplified, and like you said, give them what they wanted, give them what they needed, and maybe explain it in the way that they wanted. I think that's probably a good advice you gave. You nailed it, Mr. Man. Joe, if people want to get a hold of you, tell them where to find you.
Well, right now I'm actually hanging out at my friend's gym in Holland, Michigan. It's called Flex Fitness Center, nice. Which I do work with people down here occasionally, which I believe is flexfitnesscenter.com. I should probably know that one off the top of my head. But just my usual blog where I kind of spew my caffeinated sort of inspired ideas is morningcupofjoe.com.
Yeah, and I would just go on record to say I don't think you need caffeine the way you move. But cool, man. Thanks for coming on, and thank you, everybody, for watching.
Always a pleasure. Talk to you guys again soon.
Cool.
Show me a good time. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Show me a good. Show me a good. Show me a good time.